Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we are going to deal with another unit of literary theory and criticism, paper number 21, in which I am going to deal with the topic Reality and Sincerity by F.R. Lewis. Let us take a look at introduction. There is a quote by Witness Lee that truthfulness is the revealed divine reality becoming our genuineness and sincerity so that we may live a life that corresponds to the divine light. Literary criticism occupies its own position along with literary creation. Lewis is often viewed as having been better critic of poetry. In present essay, he has proved his excellence as a critic. So let us take a look at what is the biography of F.R. Lewis. F.R. Lewis in full, Frank Raymond Lewis, was a literary critic. He championed seriousness and moral depth in literature. He criticized amateur materialism of his life. Lewis attended Cambridge University and then served throughout the World War I as an ambulance bearer on the Western Front. He lectured at Emmanuel College in Cambridge from 1925. He has elected in fellowship in the early 1930s at Downing College. He retired in 1962 and thereafter served as visiting professor at number of English universities. Lewis believed that literature should be closely related to criticism of life, and that is therefore a literary critic's duty to assess work according to authors and society's moral position. It is critics' duty to assess work according to position of what is morality in the time. Lewis wrote a five major work, and his first work is The New Bearing in English Poetry, which was published in 1932. In this, he attacked English late Victorian poetry. He proclaimed the importance of the work T.S. Eliot, Ezra Pound, and George Manley. Hopkins. He emphasized wit and the play of intellect rather than late romantic sensuousness. In his second work, Revolution, Tradition and Development in English Poetry, which was published in 1936, in this he extended his survey of English poetry back to the 17th century. Then his interest moved towards the novel. In his third work, The Great Tradition, which was published in 1948, in this he reassessed English fiction and proclaimed Jane Austen, George Eliot, Henry James, and Joseph Conrad as great novelists of the past. He put D.H. Lawrence as their only successor. Then, in his fourth work, Anna Karenina and Other Essay, which was published in 1967, in this he stressed the importance of novelists, including Dickens and Tolstoy. It engaged his attention here, his best election in Shawn. He also connected with I.R. Richard and established intellectually rigorous school of critical standard, which was influenced in English literary studies. He was also wrote one book, Levish book, treated as a cultural environment and great tradition, and it is in relation of literature to social issue as a part of larger criticism of life. He used the approach of the Cambridge critic to the literature, and it shaped by Ludwig Wittgenstein's work uh, in that. Now take a look at the essay. He took three poems in this essay and then he compared three of this poem, and he was trying to establish that which poem is based on the basis of reality and sincerity. So what is the main reason behind it? This is to understand that why some poems are better than other. So very first poem is Alexander Smith's Barbara. Alexander Smith was a Scottish poet and labeled as one of the spasmodic school and essayist. He was the leading representative of spasmodic school, now fallen into oblivion. And let us look at few lines of that poetry that on the Sabbath day, through the churchyard old and grey, over the crisp and yellow leaves, I hold my resulting way. In a way, this poem has all the whys that are to be feared. Theme of the poem is irreparable loss, which cannot be repaired. This poem is goes straight for a sentimental debauch with a kind of innocent shamelessness. It sorts for its own sake. The poem offers a luxurious enjoyment which came out from the suffering of unbearable sorrow that a person can feel, which can who can write this poem. The cheapness of sentiments sentimentally appears so immediately in the moment. There was the clutches of phrases and attitude which describe this thing. The poem reminds us DJ Rasuti is the blessed damsel. It is like similar to this poetry. In the first verse, he uses some words like old, use old adjectives like old, grey, crisp, yellow. All these show the tone of something about to end. In the first verse, we come to know that something is about to end because in the three of the poetry, three of the writer are talking about the death of their beloved or their loved ones. In the second verse, it ends with the powerful image of Barbara looking out of the heaven. Comparison of earthly and heavenly love. The use of this poem for a present purpose is to serve as a foil to Emily Bronte's, which it does by its mere juxtaposition. That poet only used this poetry only for giving the comparison of the poetry, none of the other thing he wanted to do with it. In the fourth stanza, Barbara's ghost linger like a bad smell. That in this stanza he conclude with the erotic memory and these things that is like correct with the wild morning when they love but one can't understand the purple stain on the mouth because of the kiss on the dead body, which there is purple stain, but one cannot understand why this purple stain came into that body. In the next poem, there is a poem called In Earth by Emily Bronte. Emily was English novelist and poet. Her Wuthering Heights novel, now considered as a classic of English literature. She also published a book of poetry with her sister under pen name Alice Bell. So, in this poem, there is a quotation, in this criticism, in this essay, there is a quotation that suggestion that something quite opposed to the luxury of memories, repartious pain in being cherished in the poem. Most of the time, Emily trying to dramatize herself that she is in that, she is putting herself in that shield, but she is not feeling the same thing and offers betrayal less real. That most of the time we feel that she is not feeling all the things, but she is just dramatizing herself. The covering of grave suggests that poet is no longer concerned with her beloved at the point period has gone because the his beloved her beloved one is dead now, but she not at all concerned with their beloved one's dead body. She just wanted to give all the kind of things or she wanted to tell, but she didn't have any connection, any feeling for that. Conceive a situation in order to have the satisfaction of disciplined imaginative exercise. In a way, she is trying to take a satisfaction that she is feeling this all the feelings, but she is not actually felt that. Self projection make poem dully and perspective reader could describe without knowing biographical fact. If we are reading whole poem, then we naturally come to know that she is trying to dramatizing herself. She is just taking satisfaction of that. She is not feeling all the things. She is just trying to give us a kind of a message that don't feel this type of a sadness when someone is gone. Imagery provides us critically tone, compassionate and resolving in nature. So In the end, in the last verse of the poem, she is trying to give us a message that uh, everyone come and go in our life. We don't have to feel bad for that, and you have to be optimist, rather she was trying to say. So this reality and sincerity is not coming out from this poem. There is a third poem which is After a Journey by Thomas Hardy, and this is one of the best poems. That's what F.R. Leavish is trying to say. Thomas Hardy was a well known novelist and poet. His wife died in November 1912 after a short and painful illness. The shock of his wife's death filled Hardy with the feeling of remorse and regret. And then he produced a series of poems that are very powerful. So, this poem is a kind of real and sincere in all the way. Hardy's poem is much rarer and finer thing to be placed as a poetic achievement. Uh, Levish moves on his essay to discuss poem by Thomas Hardy, and the poem is kind of a healing poem, which seems to refer back to his lives. Levish described it as an intimate or self-communing art. It is like listening to Hardy is talking to himself, something inside our mind. Whenever we are reading the poem, then we can imagine all the things which was Hardy felt while he was writing this poem. He described his wife in the poem with kind of references like nut colored hair and grey eyes and rose flush. If we compare it with other two poems, there is absence of positive tone, which Levish described as having a great advantage in reality. The poem is talked about past memories of the poet. The hollowness rings significantly throughout the poem, and Hardy dictate himself, like Hardy is himself telling us the poem, and the ghost in the poem is Hardy's wife. There is an intimacy of the poem. If we look at the poem, then we can parted it in two. So it can be understood in two parts. First is 1 to 16 line, in which how Hardy tries to find Emma, his wife. Emma was dead, and he is trying to find her everywhere. In the line 17 to 32, Emma leads him to the memories, whichever they both spend together. If we look at this line wise description, then in 1 to 8 line, poet wants to talk with the ghost of Emma, and he is trying to do the conversation with Emma. In the line 9 to 16, poet shows his feeling of regret since the relationship is not same, because Emma was no more. So he is feeling that their relationship is not same as it is whatever it is in past. In 17 to 24 line, poet sees the ghost in lonely countryside of Cornwall, and this thing lead Hardy to the past memories, and she transport himself in nostalgic moment. In all these lines, poet trying to describe how they spend their time and how Emma and their relationship with Emma was. In this line 25 to 32, there is two types of imaginaries. First is kinesthetic imageries, in which they are using, poet is using words, certain words like vanished, fluttering, and all used in like birds and seals. Then there is a visual imagery, and there was we can visualize it like star, dawn, flowers, etc. So in the next, that Heretum, I come to view a voiceless ghost. If we are reading it for the very first time, then we felt that it may be a kind of clumsiness, because it is something which is not connected with each other. But when we are reading whole poetry, then we come to know all the meaning of these all sentences. So in the next point, we can understand that it will connected with it, like this voiceless ghost. So, voiceless is kind of summing up the world compelled by intentionally realized situation, and ghost is connected with pain. So, all the both thing ghost of Emma and it is voiceless. It is connected with the memories of poet. So, the both things are connected with each other. Hardy realized that women's irreparable absence is fact. She is dead. Now whatever he is trying to do, but she will not come back. So he accept in reality, in sincerity, he accept that she is dead. There is a sharp realization that we can't go back in time and we cannot do the things and we cannot come back, came back the Emma. Everything like water and cave, calling the poet, and the result of time and dark space is still there. All these things are connected with poet, and poet feels nostalgic and trying to remember Emma. Things are not same, but memories of woman's presence as well as absence remaining painfully same. In this line we can find it that when we haunted here together. So this in this line we can see that there is absence of that woman, his beloved. In the next he talking about represent warriors kind of haunting in that in a which we line we discussed earlier. In that he was discussing a various kind of haunting, and togetherness is illusory now for poet. It is purest fidelity and sincerest tribute to actual woman. Hardy reached at the supreme experience of life, the realest thing, the center value and the meaning. It directly come out of life. It could have been written only by a man who had the experience of a life to remember back through. So the third poem is one of the best poem which is real and sincere as well. That's what Lev is trying to say. In the conclusion, we can say that on the basis of reality and sincerity, comes to conclusion that Hard is After a Journey is more effective poem. It highlights the elements of reality and sincerity. So this is from the essay Reality and Sincerity. Thank you so much.